And his words are what stuck with me. He said, it's okay to ask why. Like, you're free to ask why, but you don't get stuck there. Like, you can really get stuck in that why. And he told me, look for God's character to be revealed. And so that was my takeaway. And I've just seen a lot of goodness. And I really came to an understanding that you can't have joy without sorrow, and that these two experiences are really mingled together.
Hello, and welcome to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. This podcast is about exploring the grief that occurs at different times in our lives, in which we have had major changes and transitions that literally shake us to the core and make us experience grief. I created this podcast for people to feel a little less hopeless and alone in their own grief process as they hear the stories of others who have had similar journeys. I'm Kendra Rinaldi, your host. Now, let's dive right into today's episode. Welcome to today's episode of Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between. Today we have my friend Stephanie Broncano, and Stephanie and I happen to be neighbors as well, even though we didn't meet that way. We happen to be neighbors. And when we met, we totally hit it off and found a commonality in one of our grief experiences, and we developed a very quick friendship. Stephanie, I'd like to welcome to the podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Kendra. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
I am so excited that you accepted the invitation to be here. I'm so excited. Oh, so Stephanie, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, a little bit about me. I have spent the last, I think, 11 years as a homeschool mom, which is...
Yeah. So you basically can give us all tips now that we're all experiencing.
Oh,
And we really aren't really homeschooling. We're just like
no.
monitoring. But you literally were homeschooling, correct? Like
Yes,
you were creating the curriculum and everything, right?
well, some of that, but we've done a lot of outsourcing and co-ops and things. So it's been a combination. But we had a very active schedule outside of the home as well as the time in the home. So like everybody else, this has been a major adjustment for sure. But I have a son who's in college and a daughter who is a graduating senior, such as that
This
is right
year.
now.
Yeah.
So there's some grief,
I'm curious
of course,
how
in
that's
that.
going. I'm interested in knowing actually about that. And since you have a graduating senior, how do you see even that grieving process for her, that she won't be able to do the official things that seniors do for their graduation?
Well, it's definitely been a grief process really for both of us. Of course, much more so for her. But we're 7 weeks into this new reality. So I think there's an acceptance maybe of the way things are changing, although there is, of course, sadness in these changes too.
Yeah.
But people have rallied around not just my senior. I have seen it everywhere, and it's been so beautiful and so precious, and something that would not have happened had things just proceeded as normal.
Yes,
So we
I just got
definitely look for the
chills.
blessings. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got chills on that because it is so true. I've seen a lot of support for the class of 2020. And even when I was walking Evie, the dog, I saw in one of my neighbors' homes, like their gown was hanging at the door. It's really cute. They had the gown hanging and like a sign and actually balloons on it, and said class of 2020, like really making sure that they were like honoring their child that was graduating, and just finding different ways of doing that. So
absolutely.
Well, that's good. That's good that you've had that support.
Oh yeah, from places. I mean, here in our town, somebody started a page to adopt seniors from all the different local schools, and somebody invited us to join. And I said, but we're homeschooled. We live in the district, but we haven't used the district. And I had two moms say that doesn't matter. So my daughter was adopted.
How does it work to adopt a senior? How does it work?
I'll send you a link to that. But it's a Facebook group, and I put in some photos and talked about her experience as a student all these years, and somebody we don't even know adopted her and now become my Facebook friend and has sent her some small gifts. And I've had
Oh,
the
that is so
opportunity to
sweet.
reconnect with a family that we had known when we lived in a different town, who now live here, and we've gotten to reconnect, and I got to adopt their senior. So it's this really beautiful circle of
Oh, of
giving that's going
support.
on right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So you see that right there, even though we're just kind of, that's not really the whole topic of today, but even just touching on that
Yeah.
aspect of the grief, and then that gratitude that came of that process of her not being able, all these seniors are not able to really celebrate in the way that they were intended to or expected to, because of those
Hmm.
expectations were crushed, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then now changing it and all that support and all, that community effort to make sure that they feel special, and
Hmm.
that's the gratitude that comes in sometimes these hard moments. So thank you for
Yes,
sharing that. So you
of
have
course.
your son in college, a graduating senior, and then you
I
have
have an
two
eighth grader.
eight,
One more
eighth
eighth
graders. So
grader.
three
Yes.
three. Oh
Yes.
yeah, I was adding another one. I've never met your children.
Oh my
I've never
goodness.
met them.
Okay, well
Oh no,
we
did
need
I
to
meet
change
your
that.
daughter? I met your daughter at one of, did I meet your daughter at one of our events? Now I'm trying to,
Possibly.
or did I
Oh,
just see now?
yes. Yes,
Yes,
I
I met
think
your
you've
daughter.
met. Yes, you did. You met my
Yes.
middle one. Yes.
You're
In
okay.
Nashville.
Okay. Yes, in
Yeah,
Nashville. Yeah. So
I
we
think.
we see each other. This is the funny part. Okay. The people are gonna get a kick out of our little story. So we met again, and many of our listeners probably gonna be like, again, she's saying she knows this person through her health and wellness company, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of my really good friends through this. So we met at an event in, we live outside of Dallas, but we met at an event in the Dallas area for our company, and that's when we met. And then from there on, oh, and then we realized we were neighbors, like that. We literally lived 3 minutes away from each other, walking maybe like 7 minutes away, and
Yeah.
and from there on, every time we'd see each other would be in another state, Nashville, in in Arizona, but we'd rarely be able to see each other here. And the other day we ran the I say the other day when it happened like 3 months ago, but we ran into
Hmm.
each other at the grocery store, like at like, what time was it? Like late, like it's
Oh,
before, not the grocery, it was the pharmacy,
yes.
like what, like 10 o'clock at
9:30,
night
ten
or something,
o'clock.
before
Yeah.
9:30 at night. Yeah.
They were
And
closing.
we were like screaming, like we like had been like lost long, friends that had never seen each other, but we got so excited that we ran into each other actually
That was
in town
awesome.
and not out of state. So
Oh,
yeah, it
yeah,
was fun. It was fun. So yeah, so
it
we,
was.
as you can see, we have a fun dynamic of friendship here, the two of us.
Yes,
So
for
Steph,
sure.
so one of the reasons we really did connect, Stephanie, was when we were talking about the fact that we both had lost our moms, that both our moms passed away. And that was one of
Hmm.
the topics of our conversation when we talked. So,
Hmm.
is that what you'd like to share today? Would be was that your first grieving experience, the one with your mom, or at least it's the most
Yeah.
recent one?
That was, well, yeah. I mean, I'd had other grief experiences. I'd lost my father before. I lost him when my youngest child was 2 months old. So that was what, 14, going on 15 years ago.
15 years ago.
But
Okay.
yeah, but my mom, it was just different. It was the big one for me.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Do
and
you
I
want
could
to
hardly
share
feel
it?
the emotions welling up.
It
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and I kind of prefaced with you before we started recording, that it is totally okay
yeah,
if anything, and if there's anything you kind of want to hold off on not topic talking,
yeah,
absolutely okay. But
yeah.
also, if the emotions come out, it's just part of the process. So
Yes,
it's a safe space.
thank you.
So your mom, has it been 6 years?
Yeah, it'll be 7 years, September 11th of this year. So she died on
Oh,
9/11 of 2013.
of
Yep.
2013, and that day
Yes.
it was hard for many different levels, right? It was a sudden
Yes.
death, and um
Hmm.
share a little bit of that aspect. You don't have
Yeah.
to go into too many details, but a little bit, because it
Sure.
affected the family in a big way.
Yes, it did. It did. Well, of course, I'm homeschooling my kids, so my kids got to see everything
Hmm.
happening in real time. Um, and my mother she passed away as a result of a car accident, and it was in Philadelphia, and we were here in the Dallas
In
area.
Texas. Hmm.
Earlier that morning, we had actually watched a documentary that a high school friend had made about 9/11 because he knew people who had escaped the towers. I'm from that part of the country, so there were a lot of connections with everything that happened on 9/11, 2001. So I'd shared that with my children in the morning. It's always a very emotional, time reflecting on that. And then in the afternoon, I got the call that my mom had been in a car accident on the other side of the country. And my mom was, she was 86. She was not young, but she was a very independent person. And she was really, in a lot of ways, the way she left this earth was extremely appropriate for who she was. She's not somebody who would have done well growing old in a chair, dealing with health issues. So she left the world active, and that's a
Active, which is
blessing.
how she was. Yeah.
Yes,
So it's a
that's a
blessing in
blessing.
disguise for,
Yes.
yeah.
So it was hard on the people left behind, but I can
Mm.
recognize that for her, it was the right death for her. And that does bring comfort. It really does. You don't want to think of your
I
parent.
have chills everywhere right now. Like
Oh,
my body, it's like,
well,
yeah, chill. It's like, yeah, it's feeling that you can already recognize that aspect that for her, for her own, the way,
mhm.
the personality she had, that this was the right way for
Yeah,
her to leave this
yeah,
mortal world.
yeah. I didn't come to
So,
grips with that right away, but
yeah,
yeah.
was it did she pass immediately in the car accident? Was it where
No,
was she at the
we got,
hospital first?
yeah, she's at the hospital. They, had to use jaws of life to get her out of the car. And
Mm,
she was at the hospital, had several blood transfusions, and she was just broken the entire right side of her body. And at her age, even had she survived, she would have had, not good quality of life. But they
mhm.
did try to save her. There were a lot of, confused phone calls back and forth across the country. What's
That's what I
going
was gonna
on?
even
Who
ask
knows?
you. Oh no, that happened. Those
Yeah.
confused phone calls happened with when my sister passed away.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah.
When they told you, was she still? When they called you, was she still
Hmm.
alive, or has she
Well,
already passed?
yes, I was getting phone calls that she was alive, but in surgery, that it was, then I got a call. It's very bad. You need to get here.
Hmm.
And I was like, what do I do? I was kind of trying to be somewhat normal, and I was running errands, and just like, what do I do? Because I'm across the country. I
Hmm.
can't just sit in my house and shut down and wait. I have to keep
Hmm.
moving
Busy. You
forward, I
kept
guess.
busy. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes, I kept
Was it
busy. So I
mainly,
got a
do you
call
think
from one of my
do you see it
sisters.
now? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you see it
No, that's
now?
okay.
Do you
Go
think
ahead.
when you were keeping busy, do you see it as if maybe it was a way of knowing that there was this helplessness feeling, this,
Yes.
helpless feeling, and that it's like,
Yes.
okay, if I'm keep busy, I know that
Yes.
I can at least, control that aspect of my life in that moment. Is that a
Yes.
little bit of, you think that looking back,
Yes.
you think that was your coping mechanism?
Yes. The thought of
Okay.
sitting in my
Okay.
home waiting for news was like,
Was
torture. And
dreadful.
so
Yeah.
we kept
Like,
going. And
hmm.
so I got a call from my sister saying, okay, it's worse than we thought. You need to make arrangements, get on a plane. I was driving with my then 7-year old, almost 8-year old in the back, um, making some calls from the car.
Hmm.
Okay, I had a commitment that following day. I can't be there. What do I need to do next? I need to call my husband. What, just all this as
Hmm.
I'm driving, which is not smart. I mean, this was a car accident related
Hmm.
situation. But so my sister called me, and said, are you sitting down? Where are you? And I said, I'm in the car driving. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. And I said, let me get off the road. And I knew, obviously, I knew. And so I barely made it into the parking lot, as she told me, of a gas station. So unfortunately, what she witnessed was not very pretty and was very difficult for her because she saw me break down. So, oh goodness, yeah. Excuse
It's
me.
okay, honey.
So, I
No,
called
no,
my
no.
husband. He came and got me, and just kind of went from there. The next day, I got on a plane. There wasn't anything to be done at that point, but to just go be with family. So I just kind of disappeared for a week
Hmm.
and went to be with my half siblings. So we went, and we just kind of all convened at my sister's house, just kind of like, what's next? What do we do next? And went through the next steps together. Um, well, my husband held down the fort with the kids. So, yeah, it was a very intense experience.
That is
Very
intense.
intense.
And it's also really intense when you're in that moment of when you get there, and all the I don't think people like that first week. It's like all the things you do in order to
Hmm.
prepare for funeral or whatever, memorial or this or that, that sometimes it just doesn't really even allow you time sometimes to even really
Hmm.
feel,
Right.
because you're just kind of doing things that have to do about the death. Did you notice that happening when you guys were there for that first week, that like the first few days when you arrived?
Well, it was just we did a lot of just kind of, we were in the house all together, but there were just decisions that had to be made. And
Mm-hmm.
because I was the only one flying from across the country, and I took a Spirit flight because this was unexpected. I took a cheap flight, and so there were delays getting there. And honestly, it was more than 24 hours before I got there because of these delays, and some decisions had been made. But um,
Are you the
there was,
eldest daughter?
I'm
Are
the
you the eldest?
youngest. I'm the
You're the
youngest.
youngest.
Hmm. So, yeah, there was a lot of just kind of being there, kind of what next. And we had spread all of her paperwork on a table, including her will. And we were just all
Mm,
so scrambled. We would just kind of take turns walking over to that table to figure out what the next step was
mm,
and what did we need to look at.
mhm,
And interestingly enough, I in that time I flipped over like a manila folder that had her will in it. And my mom, bless her heart, she's always taking
Bless
care of
her
us to
heart,
the end.
my East
Yes,
Coast girl who's like
yes.
so southern now here.
I know, bless her heart, y'all. But I flipped over this envelope, and in her handwriting, she had said, "Smile, I'm in heaven."
Oh
She
my
had left us that
gosh,
message.
no, no.
Yes, because she wanted us to
Oh,
be joyful in her absence.
that is
Yeah,
amazing. What a beautiful. Okay, I'm taking
yeah,
notes on that to do that on my will. Like, imagine that that's like what your loved ones see in that moment that they don't even know. Like, what a beautiful little message
yes,
to leave. Oh,
yes,
what
it
did you feel
was.
in that
It was
moment
in
when
her
you opened?
handwriting.
Oh,
Oh, I couldn't believe it. It was like she was there, and it was just like she wants us to know everything's okay, and that
mhm.
we can be sad because we miss her, but don't be sad for her. She's better than ever. She's crossed that
Mhm.
threshold, that unknown. She's done that
Oh my
difficult
gosh.
thing, and so we can rejoice for
That
her.
is that is
Yeah.
so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Now, talking about that and the and that that outlook on it.
Hmm.
Would you say that those beliefs about, your beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs have played a
Hmm.
huge part in your grieving process and helping you in that process?
Yes, they have.
What have you
But an
found the most
interesting note
comfort
to that.
in your what you believe? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I have to backtrack a little because interesting. I grew up in church and had been very
Mhm.
active in church. And I went through a season, probably in my late 30s or early 40s, of questioning my faith and questioning everything. And I was kind of
Mm.
coming out on the other side of that when this happened. So it was almost like I got to start fresh with kind of all the
Wow.
baggage removed and just really look for what was essential and
Mm.
really real to
To
hang
go
on
back
to.
back
I'd
to the
kind of
core,
already,
back to the core.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, I had already
Back
jettisoned a
to the
lot of
core of your
extraneous
beliefs.
things. Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Now,
I reached
so
out in
in
that time. Yeah, go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead. I think we have like a little of a delay. So if we
Oh,
end up interrupting each other, it's just because there's probably just a tidbit of a delay. Go
okay.
ahead, honey. You reached out.
Okay. I reached out to someone whose book I had read that just kind of resonated with me. I don't remember if it was email or Facebook. I don't even know. I had one conversation with this. It was a former pastor. And his words are
Mhm.
what stuck with me. He said, "It's okay to ask why. Like you're free to ask why, but you don't get stuck there. Like you can really get stuck in that why." And he told me, look for God's character to be revealed. And so that was my takeaway. And
Mm.
yeah, I've just seen a lot of goodness. And I really came to an understanding that you can't have joy without sorrow, and that these two experiences are really mingled together. And that's kind of how I, walked out of that experience understanding that.
That is that is so powerful because a lot of times there is a moment that sometimes people feel a little guilty when they feel joy, even in moments in which they're grieving.
Hmm.
Um, like if they suddenly laugh or something, they're like, oh no, wait, no, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way because I'm supposed to be sad. But it is, like you just said, it is intertwined, and it actually, a lot of times, I know for me, laughter and is a huge, huge part of how
Hmm.
actually I grieve. Humor is one of the thing how I grieve.
Hmm.
Um, so it is just so unique to everybody, how they express it. Did you find that you all did, like in your family, then did you all have similar, uh I know you said you kind of were in that, you had just been in that questioning kind of uh, period of your life, and then just
Hmm.
re reconnecting again with
Well,
God and your beliefs.
I can't.
Was it different for your other siblings?
Yes.
How
I think
so?
so. They're quite a bit older than me, so they were,
Hmm.
and their children are grown, so they were in a different phase altogether of their lives.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, they definitely clung to their faith very strongly. Probably helped me in being able to do the same thing.
Hmm. Did you feel, you mentioned their children
Yeah.
were grown? Did you think that the added component to your
Hmm.
grief was also helping your children navigate that grief of losing their grandmother?
Yes, and just
Mm.
yeah, and being, again, homeschooling them through all this. I had many people tell me I needed to put them in school because it was too much for me to handle. But I'm a little stubborn. And I said, no, I'm going to
Mhm.
continue to do what I feel I want to do. So my
Mhm.
children saw the grief. They saw me low, but they also saw me get back up.
That
Um,
is, oh,
yeah.
oh, Steph. That is That is so important. And I think that and when you mentioned about your daughter having seen you when you heard the news, and how
Hmm.
you felt like maybe that was traumatic, I think that actually that is such a gift that you gave her, because kids do need to see us experience all these different emotions, because if not, then how else do we learn as children to know how to navigate our emotions? We talk about the
Hmm.
emotional intelligence and all these kind of things. I think that a lot of times people don't know how to navigate them is because they've never seen them expressed in their parents. They've
Right.
never seen their parents cry, or never seen their parents be, sad, or you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I think it's a gift that you gave them, having them, showing them that, and the fact that you did get back up, and it gives them that hope. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, I
what
always
were some
hoped.
of you
Yeah.
always what?
I hope that's true. So thank you for that.
Oh, I
Thank
I mean,
you.
that is on my book. I believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
I am very in my with my kids, they've seen every single emotion in the process also of our grief. And
Hmm.
sometimes they don't understand, because then they've asked, like, but you said you were happy that, well, hello, your
Yeah,
dog, by the
sorry.
way, her dog was responsible for her breaking her finger and
Yes.
having, I have to ask you how you're healing, by the way. I could hear
Uh,
the dog in the back.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Um, but sorry, that's a little side note. This is real life. We're home with my dog is actually sleeping right here next to me as I'm talking. But
Oh.
um what I was gonna say is, like, when my son would be confused, because sometimes when I would be crying, and I'd say, sorry, it's because I'm missing my mom right now. It's like, but he's like, but you said you were happy that she passed away. I'm like, I'm not saying I was happy that she passed away. I'm happy that she passed away the way she wanted to pass
Hmm.
away, and
Right.
that we were all there, and that she's okay. But I still miss her. And so
Hmm.
it's that duality of, of emotions, and being able again to express it. I think it's valid, but and
Hmm.
valuable. Now,
Yeah.
what are some of the little things you've done to help you in this whole mourning process? Clinging to your faith,
Hmm.
um, holding on to with your beliefs, expressing your emotions. What other things
Hmm.
are things that have helped you in this grieving process? And again, it's a process, it's a journey, and it will continue. So, so
Yes.
what are some of the things that you did early on, and maybe some of the
Yeah.
things that you do, because it changes?
It does. Well, like you said about humor, I had one,
Mm-hmm.
funny thing I used to watch over and over, and it was something my mom had thought was funny that I didn't know about till after she passed. And I would just sit there and watch this clip over and over. I'd go from tears to laughter and back
What
again.
clip
And
was it? What was it? What
oh
clip?
goodness, do you remember the Sweet Brown with "Ain't Nobody Got Time for That"? Do you remember that?
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, that was it. With the whole like song, the whole
Yes,
like song that they did with that. Ain't nobody
yes.
got time for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So my mom was more hip than me because I didn't know about that. And then one of my siblings was like, "Mom thought this was funny. Have you ever seen this?" And I just watched that over and over for the months
Oh.
ahead and laughed so hard. And then I did a
Because you
lot
could
of
just
took a
imagine
lot of
her
walks.
laughing.
Oh, I could absolutely. She's funny because she could be very proper, but she could also be very rambunctious. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
She had both sides to her, so that just made it extra funny to me that she liked it.
Okay, so
But
humor. So watching a
humor.
video, what other little things?
Oh, I took a lot of long walks, a lot of long walks, listened to a lot of music. Sometimes it was really sad music, just
Mm-hmm.
music. Music is healing to me. Somebody told me drink a lot of water, so I drank a lot of water.
Mm.
I journaled, just trying to get my thoughts clear.
Can I
Um,
ask you when you would journal, would you do entries like of what your emotions were in that moment, or would you do entries as if you were talking to her?
it was more me getting my thoughts out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in source, sometimes it'd be recording things that happened, and then how I felt about them, and um, yeah, it was definitely just me processing my thoughts. Um, Trying to think what else did I do. Well,
Prayer,
I joined a
prayer,
group
I'm
called Grief
assuming.
Share, and I had, yeah, prayer. I found a community of people who were grieving and spent some time there. I got a grief coach, um, just because I felt, because my kids were with me and I had these responsibilities, I couldn't, have that time during the day when they were in school. I felt like I needed somebody to help me process. So I did have a grief coach for just about a month, not a long time, but just to kind of help me.
Mm-hmm.
And some useful information she gave me was that sometimes we have to let people know what we need, because people, if they haven't been
Mm.
through it, they don't know. And maybe they have been through it, but they're a different person than you are. So it's seems kind of strange, but it's almost the responsibility of the grieving person to let people know what they need, because people don't. They don't
Yes.
know. And so
Ye-
being open
That is
about
so
that.
that is huge. And also the how people express, like, did were there any little phrases or things of when people would express their condolences per se to you? Were there any things that people say that you remember that brought you comfort, or and were there also things that actually would like kind of like, oh, that did
Yeah.
not strike the right chord? Because a lot of times,
Yeah.
again, like what your coach would say, people don't know, they, even if they've experienced it, they're still a different person. So do you do
Yeah.
you recall like sometimes those like hallmark kind of comments that people say that are just so standard?
Yes.
um
Well,
they
I
come
think
with good intention.
they do. Anything that starts with the word "at least" is probably not
Mm,
helpful. I think Brene Brown says
mm,
that too.
mm.
I heard that from some people. I think I've forgotten a lot of the things that really dinged me at the time. I guess that's grace. It's finally
Yes,
washed
yes,
off
that's good.
me. But
Yeah, and
at the
again, because
time, there
that
were
people
things.
aren't doing it. Yeah, people aren't doing it with ill intent. It literally is on. I mean, I've done it. I've done
Yeah,
it,
me
and
too.
I am one of those that is so cautious about not saying those particular things that are like, like automatic pilot. But all of a sudden, it just
Hmm.
comes out, and then I'm like, oh, wait. Let me just take
Yes.
that back a second, because I just said something that was not, and I say, I'm sorry. I just used my automatic pilot. That's not what I meant to say. Like,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
it's an
Oh, I
automated response.
yeah, I know I've said dumb things and not been the most supportive person even after going through this grief experience. Just we're human.
No, we're human. And
We're
again,
human.
somebody else that those words may bring somebody, maybe the at least maybe bring somebody else
Yeah.
comfort. Those at least she's in a good place, at least she's
Yeah.
not suffering, at least you got to say goodbye, at least whatever the at least comes for somebody, it may bring comfort. But again, a lot of it too is timing. Sometimes
Hmm.
those at least you're more ready to hear those later on than in that
Yeah.
moment when you're just feeling that
Yes.
freshness of this news, and it you're still digesting it really
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
um okay, so now what things did you do to help the kids in that process too?
Well, early on, I went a little overboard. I was already a little concerned
Hmm.
about my youngest, and her being the
Hmm.
youngest, there were times that she was already maybe watching too much TV or whatever, just in a busy household. So I kind of went a little crazy trying to get everybody to express their feelings, a little bit overboard.
Mm.
Um,
We have to talk
definitely.
about him.
Yes,
We
draw a
have to
picture. I mean, just
kumbaya.
yeah, yeah, I did because I'm much more expressive and open. That's how I cope, but not everybody's like that. And as the mom, I felt like I had to make sure they were okay, and you know,
That is so
kind of a
me. Oh my
disaster
gosh,
when I
that's
was a
so
mess.
me.
Yeah.
Uh,
See, that's
oh
why
my
we
gosh.
vibe.
Yes, yeah, that is right, because we both are the same. Yeah, I'm the like that too. And then I realized, well, I guess not everybody wants to share. But yes, I'm the same. But how do you
Yeah,
really feel? Like, no, but really, like,
yeah, right.
uh,
Yeah,
so that was at the
exactly.
beginning.
Yeah.
What other things then later on?
um, Goodness. I don't really know. Sounds crazy. I mean, we just kind of went on. They're all very distinct personalities. I know my son doesn't express as much still. He's much more private and he's in his head. But I remember one day, I don't know if it was a year or two later, he sent me lyrics to a song, not a song that I knew, but it was directly related to grieving. And so that was his way of reaching out to me, letting
Oh,
me know he understood, letting me know he had his own grief journey, even though he may not show it. That was beautiful. That was
mm. How old was he at that
very,
time?
oh gosh, in his teens, because he was a freshman when she
Mm,
passed. So he was probably
mm,
maybe 16 when he sent me that.
mhm,
Never said a whole lot, but um, yeah, that was powerful. And then my middle daughter, she's a connector by nature. She finds her people. She got involved in a small group at church and had a lot of support there. And my youngest, I mean, the girls talk to me, so I feel like we've had an
mm,
open dialogue as they've needed to. My youngest recently did tell me she I don't remember her words, but she was talking about that experience in the car as when we
mm.
got the news, and still, that's still there. um,
It's there, but it's also because it's the first time they've probably seen you in that vulnerable
yes,
state too.
yeah,
So it was
yeah,
definitely surprising. Oh yeah, my son tells me, I remember when you cried when I'm, like when, and but specifically like because
hmm,
I might have had a meltdown because he wasn't doing something he should have done, something like that, and he's like, I remember
right,
when you cried that time. And that was like, I don't know, he was 4, but it was the
yeah,
fact that he saw me get to that point of actually crying that he remembers.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
it's different for them.
yeah. It
So
is.
so then okay, so she recalls that, and so you have those conversations that, and so the middle one is the one that had the grief support at, well, or friends that's in church.
Hmm.
You would go to the grief support, and then you had the grief coach. The grief support, how long did you go to that organization?
Well, it was supposed to be an 8-week course, and I
Uh-huh.
probably only made it to half of them because of just, busy mom schedule. So I did what I
Mm-hmm.
could there. But at the end of that, we did something neat. We gathered for a meal, and it was in my home. Everybody brought food. It was a potluck, and we brought pictures of our loved ones who we were grieving, and we shared and just sort of had some closure around that time
Mm.
that we had all shared in that group, really honoring our loved ones. And I remember one of the men had lost his son to the flu, and he shared the picture slideshow from his funeral, and I mean, it was a very powerful experience. And I haven't continued on in those people's lives, and they haven't in mine, but there's that you know very special connection that took place in
Yeah,
those
that you
weeks
helped
that we
each
all needed
other.
it. Yeah.
Exactly, when you
Yeah.
guys needed that support, and it's still a connection that's there regardless of whether you talk to them or
Mhm.
not, because you all helped each other in that process. And I think
Yeah.
peer support is important. I mean, even just the organization in which I volunteer, that is a
Mhm.
peer based organization. Peer support, peers. Oh my gosh, I can't say that. Peer based support. My
Yeah.
Spanglish comes in. Peer based support. Um, and it is just so important because then you don't feel alone. And that's again
Mhm.
why with this podcast too is people that are listening are like, oh my gosh, oh, I've done that too. Like,
Yeah.
even just the fact that we have those conversations, like you and I, even talking about things that we had not even been able to let go. Like I had not been able to delete my mom's phone out of, number
Yes.
of her out of my phone, and things that are hard, to let
Mhm.
go of, because you're still in that process, even if it's been
Mhm.
years. And so knowing that you're not alone just also brings a little bit that comfort, that you're like, oh wait, I'm not that insane.
Right.
i'm not I'm not
Absolutely.
insane. it's
Oh
it's
no.
normal. I'm normal. I'm just I'm just
Yeah.
going through this.
Yeah.
um so nowadays, like, what are some of the things that you all do as a family, that you do like in special occasions, like her
Yeah.
birthday or holidays? Are
Mhm.
there certain things that you do to honor her memory?
Well, I talk about her almost every day. Just,
Mm,
mom would have liked this. She would have said this. This reminds me of her. And I try to keep her memory there for my kids because,
I love
they were
that.
young when they lost her. Um, for a long time, she would come and visit us. She would alternate Christmas and Thanksgiving and sometimes Easter to kind of work around seeing us and her other kids and their kids. So and I still do this sometimes. I'll set the table for six instead of five and say, that's Nana's chair.
Mm.
Christmas is special because, I have a very sentimental tree full of ornaments. And, my sister gave me some that had been on my mom's tree that I remember from my childhood. So
Mm.
it's a wonderful memory when I get to pull those things out and just
That's beautiful.
reminiscing. She was a
Yes.
painter. I
Now,
have
how
her
about
paintings around my house and just, yeah.
oh, that is a great way of remembering. Now, how about
Hmm.
like, are there any particular like recipes or things like that that were passed down that you do in special
Yes.
occasions?
Well, she was a
Okay, well,
better
tell
cook
me.
than me, I must confess.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
so yours is the, what is it? The failed, nailed or failed it, like that show,
yeah,
like
yeah,
that you
yeah.
did.
Well, I really
So
I have
you're
two that yeah, they're not as good as hers, but hey, it's my effort. But yeah, I make a carrot pudding usually for Thanksgiving, which she made, and
oh,
she didn't make that till I was an adult, but I loved it,
is
and
that
it
as a
just
dessert?
well, we serve it as part of the main meal, but it is very sweet. It's like a souffle, and it's delicious.
Mm.
And then the thing that she made, forever and ever that I love to make is chocolate bread pudding. And I usually make that during the holidays a
Oh
couple
my
times, Christmas,
gosh.
maybe New Year's. Yeah.
Do you do it in the crock pot or do you do it in the oven? Like
I, well,
because I've had crock pot bread pudding and
have
oven bread.
you, I haven't done that.
Which one do
I
you?
do the oven, I scald the milk on the stove and do all that and then stick it in the oven. It's actually extremely easy, which is
Oh
why I can
my
do it,
gosh,
but
you're
it's
gonna
so good.
you might have to reveal some of these family recipes that are not like top secret. Oh, I love
Okay.
bread pudding. But right now I'm
Yeah.
like doing gluten free for a little while, and so
Oh,
now
good
I'd
for
have to do
you.
like a gluten free bread pudding. I don't know how that would taste.
I've thought about making gluten-free bread and doing that, but I've never quite gotten myself to do that step. So,
To do it. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that well, and those things did bring also that comfort, that connection
Mhm.
to her. So seeing her paintings, seeing the ornaments on your tree, cooking these meals that are, from your childhood, that you knew that she could cook better than you, but you still are attempting and
Yeah.
passing them down to your kids. All these things. Yeah, those all those things are things that bring you comfort in this journey. Is
Mhm.
that yes?
Absolutely. And
Now
just
what
memories. Memories.
yeah. And I love that you always talk about it. So mom used to, I love that, especially with my kids. I talk a lot about my sister, even though she passed away before, they were born, before I was even married. And so I always talk about her too in that way, just so that they know her,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, she used to do this or that, so that they get to know a little bit about the character and
Yeah.
stuff. So I think that that's
Yep.
important, at least for me and my process. That's been helpful, and it looks like it is for you as well. Now, what are the things that
Yes.
you have found that you can be grateful of this experience? What are some of the things of who you are now that you believe
Mm-hmm.
would not be uh oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
hard to say, right? That's kind of hard, but like, yeah, like
I
what
know what you
things do
mean.
you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So go
Yeah.
ahead and
I
take
do.
on
I
that
get,
my really choppy
oh,
description of who are the things
yeah.
of what you are now that you feel are
Mm-hmm.
attributed in your growth based on what you experienced.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Now this is big. My mom had raised me as a single mom, and she had her older kids from her first marriage and then me. She and my dad had divorced. So I have five half siblings between the two of them, but it was just me
Mm,
as a product of the two of them. And she and
mm,
I, we were a little team. I said this at her funeral. We were like a little team, the two of us. And so, I was 43 when she passed. She was 86. She'd had a long life, but I really had to learn how to be my own person and how to stand on
mm,
my own 2 feet. And I feel like sometimes, um, I don't know, it's too easy to think, I need my mom's advice. What would my mom think? I need my mom right now. Right. Well, I mean, I still feel that way sometimes, but
mm,
not having her here has meant that I've had to, find some answers for myself. Um,
mm,
I feel like I could have either withered and, fallen apart completely, or used this as a catalyst to move forward. And I think I've done that. And I think she'd be very proud of me. Um,
oh,
I started to get into personal development, which led me into, finding our nutrition company that we both love. And
yeah. Hmm.
um, it's just been a lot of steps. I mean, my temperament is I'm very concerned with knowing what is my purpose. Like that's how I want to live. And I feel like going through this experience has just deepened that desire in me. Um,
Mm,
Life is beautiful and it's meaningful. And again, joy and sorrow are mingled together, and you really can't experience one fully without the other. And so this experience has just, uh,
mm,
I don't know, it's kind of been, it sounds weird, almost like rocket fuel for me to,
mhm.
to go forward and not get stuck.
All that you said, everything so valuable, so valuable. The fact that even though here you are already a mom of three, married, and that still you still needed to jump and fly out of the nest, and knowing that you could do that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what these last few years have taught you, is like how strong you really are, and that your wings were strong enough to fly,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
even though you didn't even know that before, because like you said, you were just relying on her, and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that you were capable of being able to find answers for yourself,
Right. Yep.
of certain things, and raising your kids and having to do it, now as a teens, without having to consult it with your mom. Do you think I should let them go to the
Yeah.
prom, or do you think I should, you know what I mean? Like all
Yes.
this, knowing that you had to come up with those decisions. And um, that is a huge learning. And how has that been um, a benefit in your family dynamics as well, that growth, and how has it affected even just that whole family dynamic?
Well, oh goodness.
Is
Well,
that
I
a
would
tough
say,
one?
yeah, no, I'm just thinking there's like so many directions I could go. But at the time that she passed, I really was in that season where my entire focus was on my family and, of course, homeschooling them. And I really had kind of lost a little bit of myself,
Hmm.
blessed that I've gotten to do what I've done. I wouldn't change a thing. But again, how has that changed the dynamic is that I'm becoming more fully me. And
Mm.
while that's sometimes challenging to my family,
Hmm.
ultimately they benefit from that. And I know that when they have to go through grief, it's not something they will have no experience. And when they grieve the loss of my husband or myself someday, and hopefully it's a long time in the future, but preparing them for that,
Mhm.
seeing me
Yeah, you're
rise,
making
you know.
You know what? That's a big thing that you're saying, because a lot of times as parents we feel that by sheltering our children we're protecting them, but a lot of times um, it ends up being sometimes more harmful. And so by us doing everything for them, then they
Hmm.
don't learn that they have the capacity of doing it themselves. So by you being able
Yeah.
to take more time for yourself and having them be a little bit more independent and knowing that they can handle that is not only a preparation for when we're not around, for when you're not around,
Hmm.
or even when they go to college, even when they move out of college. It doesn't even have to be of when we pass away, right? It has,
Right.
even just when they move on to the next steps of their lives, that they feel that they're capable enough to be able to make those decisions and things in their life without always relying on the parents. And so that is a huge learning that you had, and a huge gift that you're now giving them.
Hmm.
And it probably can be a little painful, right, in the process, like you said. Like, it's not
Yes.
that they totally like get it, but at the same time it's a big gift. It's a big gift that you're
Yeah.
giving them. And so that is beautiful. Well, Steph, that's been amazing listening
Oh.
to your story, the full story of everything, because again, I only really knew about your mom's passing, but all the journey and the growth and all the beautiful outcomes from it. And again, that intertwining of the joy and the sorrow that you mentioned, and embracing that and knowing that it's okay to feel both emotions.
Hmm.
That is a huge takeaway on my end. And
Oh.
I'm sure the listeners will have many takeaways from what this conversation has brought up. So
Oh,
I'm
Kendra,
just so
thank
grateful.
you.
I'm so grateful. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Oh,
To
well,
or did you get it everything out of it? I know
oh,
there's
I
a
think
lot of
so.
intertwine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
but
always more, but this was
more.
wonderful, Kendra. Thank you so much. I really
I am
appreciate
so
this
grateful.
time to talk with you.
I am so grateful. And I'll put in the show notes how they can find you on
Sure.
Instagram if people want to follow your journey and your health and wellness journey, or your grief journey, when you share things there too. Is your Instagram one public? Is your Instagram
Um,
account public
I have, well,
or
I have a
private?
business
Well,
account
you
that's
could
public. Well,
business. Okay, so I'll
I'll
put
send
that
you.
one in the show notes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
I'll put
great.
that one in the show notes, and that way they can follow along. And also, I'm sure, get a lot of homeschooling tips there as well. So, thank you, my friend.
Oh, thank
And
you.
okay, a big hug. It's so hard to say goodbye sometimes on these podcasts, because I just want to keep the conversation going.
Oh, yeah. I understand. Thank you,
Thank you
Kendra.
again,
Big
my
hug
dear.
back. Love
Thank
you.
you. Same, honey. I love you too. Thank you again so much for choosing to listen today. I hope that you can take away a few nuggets from today's episode that can bring you comfort in your times of grief. If so, it would mean so much to me if you would rate and comment on this episode. And if you feel inspired in some way to share it with someone who may need to hear this, please do so. Also, if you or someone you know has a story of grief and gratitude that should be shared so that others can be inspired as well, please reach out to me. And thanks once again for tuning in to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. Have a beautiful day.